Warning, this review contains spoilers for Star Wars The Last Jedi. So if you have seen the movie, like I'm pretty sure you already have because the movie has been out for weeks now, welcome, stick around, and let's talk some spoilers. But if you haven't seen the movie and don't want this movie to be ruined for you, this is your spoiler warning. But seriously, watch the video anyways because I need the views.
Yes, good. Use your aggressive feelings, boy. Let the hate flow through you.
Star Wars Episode 8 The Last Jedi. Oh boy, has this movie been getting mixed reactions. The critics seem to absolutely love this movie. The audience, however, not so much. While the movie has been praised for going into new and different directions, it also has been criticized for deviating too much from the original Star Wars canon. I feel that in order to properly review this movie, I'd have to talk about spoilers. And again, spoiler warning if you haven't seen the movie yet. So did I like The Last Jedi? Well, yes and no. So the movie starts off with the Resistance fighters led by General Leia evacuating their base when a First Order fleet arrives. A bunch of Resistance vessels led by Poe delivers a costly counterattack to the First Order fleet that leads to a dreadnought being destroyed. The Resistance ships then escape but finds out that the First Order are able to track them even through light speed. Desperate and running low on fuel, the Resistance must figure out a way to disable the First Order's tracking device and escape with the few numbers they have left. Meanwhile, on the island, Rey is trying to get a reluctant Luke to join the Resistance and manages to persuade him to teach her the ways of the Force. After a lesson where the dark side of the Force calls out to Rey, Luke discovers that Rey did not resist the call, but went towards it instead. Fearing that Rey will fall to the dark side as his former apprentice Kylo Ren did, Luke stops training Rey, and after communicating with Kylo Ren through a Force psychic link, and seeing that Luke is a lost cause, Rey realizes that there's still potential for Kylo Ren to turn back to the light, and could still be saved. So what did I like about this movie? I thought the cinematography for this film was gorgeous. Obviously, the space battles are cool, and the shots on the Salt planet with the AT-ATs were really beautifully shot as well. The battle scene on the planet with the ships leaving trails of red dust behind them as they're flying towards the First Order army looked really cool. And there's also an amazing wide-angle shot at the end with Luke and Kylo Ren that looked absolutely stunning. I mean, this is a Star Wars film, so obviously the visuals are gonna look amazing. I thought all the actors gave good performances in their roles. Daisy Ridley and Adam Driver played well off each other and really portrayed the conflict that is building inside each of their characters. Especially Kylo Ren. Kylo Ren in this movie is not fully committed to the dark side, and we can see that through that scene where he had the opportunity to fire at his mother, Leia, but didn't. I'm also happy to see that Kylo Ren is becoming more of his own character rather than a cheap Darth Vader knockoff. Rey is continuing to grow stronger in the Force with Luke's limited guidance, and there's certainly parallels with her storyline here, and Luke Skywalker's storyline from both Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. And we finally find out who her parents are in this movie, but more on that later. Luke Skywalker in this movie is a pretty disgruntled and damaged man, and I thought that Mark Hamill did a terrific job portraying this different take on Luke. Luke was always such a positive and heroic character who was so pro-Jedi, so seeing him in such a low and dark place was a bit of a shock, and there were some aspects about his character in this movie that I didn't like, but I'll talk more about that later. Here, Luke has become so disenchanted with the teachings of the Jedi, and I also liked how he explains the Force to Rey, and addressed the prequel movies about the hubris of the Jedi, and how they were so blind in their ways that they let Palpatine rise in the ranks from underneath their noses. And the rest of the cast were good as well. Oscar Isaac returns as Poe and delivers a charismatic performance. He has a pretty good character arc where he starts out as this arrogant and reckless resistance fighter who is willing to risk the lives of his fellow comrades to take out a dreadnought, to a more humbled person who has realized the fault of his ways and is being groomed to take over as the leader of the resistance. John Boyega also returns as Finn and is a bit more serious this time around, and is less goofy and playful than he was in The Force Awakens. I guess being sliced alongside the back will do that to a man. He has his own storyline where he and newcomer Rose has to travel to this casino planet in search of a hacker to disable the First Order's tracking device, so the Resistance vessels can safely escape through lightspeed without being followed. They also try to set up this pretty awkward romance between Finn and Rose in this movie, but more on that later. And as we know, Carrie Fisher passed away earlier this year, so seeing her in this movie was a little bittersweet. Leia in this movie has been leading the Resistance for years and is this grizzled veteran, and I thought Carrie Fisher did well in her final performance as Leia. We know that Leia is Force sensitive being from the Skywalker bloodline, and I do like the idea of seeing Leia use the Force, but the way they implemented it here was a little weird for me. This movie also has a bunch of cool moments. I really like that last-ditch effort by Admiral Holdo, played by Laura Dern, where she took the ship into lightspeed and rammed all the First Order ship so the Resistance can escape. That scene was so cool. It was completely silent and it was black and white, and then boom! You see a bright flash with an explosion of sound. Definitely the highlight of the movie for me. And it was so cool seeing Yoda again. I honestly was surprised that he showed up in this movie, and was double surprised that they went with puppet Yoda instead of the CGI version. The lightsaber fight in Snoke's throne room with the guards was pretty cool too, and I thought that Luke's scene where he confronted Kylo Ren at the end with all those AT-ATs firing at him was pretty badass as well. When we first saw Luke appear to Leia at the Resistance base to give her the dice, I noticed that Luke looked different. He was more well-groomed and wasn't all disheveled looking as he did on the island. His beard was darker, his hair was cut, and he looked very much like he did in the flashback scene where he said that he read Ben's mind and saw that he was evil. I was like, did he prep himself for this climactic battle with Kylo Ren by going to a barber so he can look fresh to kill his nephew? Has Luke become so powerful that he can withstand all these blasts and just brush it off like it's nothing? No, it was just an astral projection of himself, which I thought was kinda cool. So did all this cool stuff make me love this movie? Well, not really. There are some parts I didn't like. I felt like the comedy in this film was a bit forced at times, although I did enjoy some of the humor, like when Poe is distracting Hux at the beginning of the film. I thought most of the gags didn't hit and feels like they were just trying to cram in humor for the sake of it. Like that scene where Finn wakes up and just walks down the hallway with all those tubes still attached to him spraying liquid everywhere. Or when Rey first hands the lightsaber to Luke. That was a definite WTF moment for me. I mean, this was the lightsaber that Obi-Wan, his first mentor and introduction to the Force and the Jedi, gave him in A New Hope. It's also his father's lightsaber, and the last time he saw it was when Darth Vader hacked off his hand in The Empire Strikes Back. The lightsaber should carry some sentimental value to him, so it's a little strange when he just tossed it over his shoulder when Rey handed it to him. It just seems like they just did that to get a cheap laugh out of the audience, and just felt so out of place. Shouldn't he at least ask Rey where she got it from? Just makes no sense. I also found it strange how Luke would actually consider killing his nephew Ben when he first saw darkness within him. I mean, this was a guy who believed Darth Vader could be turned back to the light. Darth freaking Vader! Probably the most iconic movie villain of all time! And yet he feels that Ben is a lost cause? Has Luke become so jaded that he would consider killing his own nephew at first sight of darkness? What happened to you, Luke? You used to be cool. Also, porgs are stupid and are just here to sell toys. I also hated Finn and Rose's story arc where they had to travel to Space Vegas to find that hacker to disable the First Order's tracking device. That whole section just slowed down the movie for me and honestly made me bored. I get what they're trying to do by setting up future movies where the events that occurred on this planet would inspire a new generation of Resistance fighters and Jedi, but the whole story arc just seems wasteful because when they do manage to find Benicio del Toro's character, he just ends up betraying them in the end. There was just no payoff in the storyline, and I also hated how they tried to set up this romance between Finn and Rose. Oh my god, that felt so forced. That scene where Rose saves Finn from going full kamikaze at the end and then delivers that super cringy line about how you don't win this war by fighting the ones you hate, but saving the ones you love, and then giving him that super awkward kiss, man, that was so lame. During that scene, I honestly thought Finn was gonna die. I mean, it would have been a more powerful scene if he did, right? Finn saw the atrocities that were committed by the First Order and decided to defect, and I thought it would have been more powerful had he gone out in a blaze of glory, taking out that cannon as a final way to stick it to the First Order for all those years of abuse he had to endure. Instead, they had Rose save him at the very last moment and force this romance that came out of nowhere. The scene where Leia used the Force to save herself after she was sucked out into space, I kinda had mixed feelings about. The idea of Leia being able to instinctually summon the Force in near-death situations to save herself seems cool to me, since she doesn't have formal Jedi training. But seriously, I thought she was dead in that scene. I mean, there's ice forming on her skin, and she was just floating there, and I thought that this was quite a bold move for the movie to do, since Carrie Fisher did pass away, and this was their way of killing off the character. I totally didn't expect her to survive, and use the Force to pull herself back into the ship. I don't know, what did you guys think about this scene? Leia also survives through to the end of the movie, and with Carrie Fisher gone, I wonder what they're gonna do with the character in Episode 9. I feel like all the setup from The Force Awakens is basically thrown away in The Last Jedi, and this movie is like a giant troll just trolling the audience. All this mystery about who Rey's parents are, all the setup in The Force Awakens where they show the flashback of her parents leaving her on Jakku, and her being so strong with the Force without any formal Jedi training led to so much speculation of her lineage. Is she related to Luke somehow? What about her hearing Obi-Wan's voice in The Force Awakens where he said, "Rey, these are your first steps," after she found the lightsaber? I mean, they even brought back Ewan McGregor to record that line, and mixed it in with some of Sir Alec Guinness's voice clips just for that scene. Why was the lightsaber even calling to her in the first place? Is she related to Obi-Wan? Nope, her parents are just a pair of junk traders who left her and traded her for some money. That's it. The reveal is so anticlimactic and disappointing, but I kinda understand what they're trying to do moving forward. With the Skywalker bloodline dwindling, and with all other Jedis either dead or gone, I think they're trying to figure out a way to introduce more Force users into this universe without being directly related to or tied to a powerful Force user in a previous movie. So Rey not being related to a Skywalker or tied to anyone from the previous movies such as Obi-Wan allows for further Jedi or Sith to be introduced in the future, as we saw at the end of the movie when the slave kid at the casino planet picks up the broom using the Force. The movie tries to redefine the Force by saying that there isn't really a dark side or light side of the Force, but instead just the Force in general. A person isn't purely light side or dark side, but has both, thus bringing balance to the Force. And I guess the reason why Rey is so strong in the Force and is able to keep up with Kylo Ren in a fight without any formal Jedi training is because the Force needs a balance of both dark and light. That's how I interpret it from the movie anyway. For all I know, Kylo Ren could just be lying to Rey to try and convince her to join him in ruling the galaxy, and Rey could really be related to Palpatine. Which brings me to the biggest question I had walking out of this movie. Who the hell is Snoke? Where did he even come from? Why is his face so messed up? All this setup from The Force Awakens portraying him as this giant mysterious figure was destroyed in one swoop when Kylo Ren used the Force to turn on that lightsaber and slice him in half. He just fell over dead. What? Just before that, he was just absolutely tooling Rey without even having to get up from his throne. He was just sitting there in his pimp robes, just toying with her. So it's just so lame that he received such a crappy death. And we didn't even get to learn anything about him, or see him do anything of significance. It's just a shame. Here's hoping that he comes back somehow and it's revealed that he's Darth Plagueis or something. As for Luke's death, I'm not sure how I feel about that. While I thought that the astral projection scene with Kylo Ren was pretty cool and badass, seeing Luke just fading away and becoming one with the Force felt a little anticlimactic to me. I mean, what happened to him? Did he just use up all his life force doing that astral projection thing? Is this like Dragon Ball Z where characters die when they use up all their energy in a giant blast? Why did he die? Did he even have to die? I don't know, but I'm pretty sure this won't be the last time we'll see Luke. They'll probably bring him back as a Force ghost in the future. But even with all these gripes, I thought the movie was worth watching. They definitely go in a different direction than the Star Wars you're accustomed to, and I'm interested in where they go from here. But I feel disappointed with how The Last Jedi just throws away everything that was set up in The Force Awakens, and just left me hanging with a bunch of unanswered questions. Who knows, maybe my opinion of The Last Jedi might change when Episode 9 comes out. But for now, The Last Jedi to me is just a meh. I'm sure most of you have seen the movie by now, probably more than once, so tell me what you thought in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, give it a like, share it, and subscribe if you haven't already. It'll really help out the channel. Until next time, Panda out.